Right. Okay. Name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. I'm so glad to be with you. It's a great blessing for me, Yani. I just want to congratulate you for this achievement. And I see إن هي دي حاجة رائعة يعني الحقيقة. God bless the service. وربنا كده يبارك and may the Lord يعني يبارك في الخدمة دي ويبارك في كل حاجة معمولة بسبب الخدمة دي وتكون سبب بركة للناس كلها إن شاء الله. Okay, so what would you expect from marriage? When I start talking to any married couples that they are having hard time or they are suffering or they are just struggling with their marriage, so after talking to each one alone, the first statement each one of them says, I was strict. I wasn't expecting that he's like that. I wasn't expecting that she was like that. And then after I continue talking with them, I correct them. And I tell them, you are not expecting what is marriage. It's not your spouse, but it's all about marriage. It's about what you are expecting from marriage or what you are expecting. Well, let me give you an example, سريع. A quick example. Imagine if any one of you was called or invited or interviewed to work in Hollywood, in Universal Studios, for example. Okay. So he entered the studios, he entered the Universal Studios, and then suddenly he see all the celebrities that he knows, all the stars and everyone, and so he's so glad of that. And then after that, he goes for the interview. They tell him, no, there's no interview. You are accepted. You'll be starting working from tomorrow. While he's going out from the Universal Studios, he meets a lot of celebrities. He meets a lot of stars, and they are greeting him. And they tell him, congratulations, we're so glad that you'll be with us in here. And then he comes the second day, and then he goes to the place that he will be starting to work in. And then he finds a person. He greeted him. He told him, I'm your manager. This is your office. You'll be sitting in here, and you'll be working in here. He sat on this office, and he sat on the chair. And while he's sitting, he found one of the stars coming inside this room and greeting him, telling him, hi, you're the new employee in here. Hi, I'm so glad to see you. And after 5 minutes, another star is coming in. And then after an hour, he didn't know exactly what he should be doing. He finds himself sitting on a table, and he don't know what he's doing. After 2 hours, he suddenly finds the man who told him that I'm your boss, entering into the room and telling him, why didn't you finish your work? So this guy started looking, work? I don't know exactly which work you're asking about. Why did you finish your work? There's a lot of work that you have to do. So please finish it. Then his boss leaves, and then after he left, he started thinking, where is my work? So why he's shouting at me like that? Why he's doing that to me? And then after a while, he started thinking, so what is my work exactly? He don't know what to do. Nobody told him anything. And after 5 minutes, another star comes inside and greets him, oh, you're the new employee. We are so glad to have you with us in here. After another hour, his boss comes again, enters, and tells him, wow, you didn't finish the work that I asked you to do? He said, look, why are you talking to me like that? Which work are you talking about? Your work, you have to do your work. You're coming from working in Universal Studios. So, which work exactly? The work that you should be doing. If you didn't finish your work, you'll be fired. Then he looked at him, why are you shouting at me like that? And then his boss leaves. And then while he's sitting there, another 5-10 minutes, another star is coming and says, hi, we're so glad to have you with us in here. So this guy started to think, what's going on in here? There's something wrong. Maybe it's a movie, or maybe I'm dreaming or something like that. What's going wrong in here? Believe it or not, this is marriage if we are not prepared to it. If we are not prepared for marriage, this is marriage. This is the same case of marriage. We're going to do something that is fun, that is nice, that is so exciting, as if we're seeing all the stars every day, every 5 minutes we're seeing all the stars. We're getting something fun. But from time to time, my spouse comes to me and tells me, why are you not doing your work? Which work I should be doing? This guy that entered into Universal Studios, he wasn't told exactly what he should be doing in the Universal Studios. Nobody told him what he should be doing. So when his boss came and shouted at him, he started saying, why this guy is dealing me like this? What's happening? What's going on? So he was expecting to work in Universal Studios. He was expecting to work in places which are having fun, which are having celebrities, which are having stars and so forth. But he was not prepared for this work. He didn't know exactly what to do and what was his role in this work and what he's supposed to do. He thought that it's just fun, but in reality, he should be prepared for something like that. This is exactly marriage today. And I just want to say about today, because in the past, maybe our families, our mom and dads, or whichever, the older families, they were not struggling as we are struggling today with marriage. By their days, by that old days, everything was going smooth, everything was going fine, they were able to adapt with each other. But now the point that it's not easy to adapt. It's very difficult. That's why we have to be prepared for marriage, and that's why, most importantly, we have to understand what we are accepting for marriage and what exactly are our expectations, whether we are going into marriage, whether we are going to get married, or whether we are already married. So let's try to see today, we're going to speak about what are we expecting from marriage. What's our expectations? We will try today a little bit in this lecture that we are going to tune up our expectations. So we are going to adjust our expectations, whether are we going to get married or whether we are married already. So but we're going to adjust our expectations. Because the expectations is one of the major causes of the problems in marriage. So, the first thing that we can address marriage is responsibility. So, if I'm going to get married, or if already I'm married, okay, the first thing that should I have addressed in marriage is responsibility. Responsibility. I was giving a lecture to a youth meeting actually. This youth meeting was mixed youth meetings, so there was youth, there was boys and girls, and then I started speaking with them and talking to them about marriage, and then I started speaking about the responsibilities in marriage. So what is the responsibility of man and what is the responsibility of wife? And then I started telling the girls, for example, I told them, are you ready to live at a house alone for all day long without talking to anybody, without Facebook? And when your beloved one, which would be your spouse, come into the home, he will not be able to talk with you and to listen to you at all. He's going to sleep. Are you able to live like that for around 2 or 3 days? Most of them started looking at me. What are you talking about? Is that his marriage? Is that marriage? I told him, yes, this is a part of marriage. You have to expect something like that. You'll not be able to talk to anybody. You'll not be able to talk and speak to anybody. Maybe for 1 day, for 2 days, for 3 days. But you'll be cooking, you'll be cleaning the home, and you'll be doing all the things that are needed in the home. Well, I started mentioning some other points, and likewise for the boys. And then they started to be angry at me. And then they started looking at me like that. What do you want to say? Is that really marriage? I told them, yes, this is really marriage. So the first thing in marriage is responsibility. We have to have a responsibility. This is the very first thing. It's really. So it's written here, yet it's fun, interesting, fulfilling a lot of personal needs, which is marriage. But still all of this is the candy bar of marriage besides something called responsibility. And of course, the presence of these makes a responsibility a piece of cake. So, if we are having a sense of responsibility, and there's a good relationship between the couples, that makes the responsibility as a piece of cake. It makes it easy. So the first thing that we have to address is responsibility. That's why we have to be aware. If we are going to get married, so the first thing to look for is responsibility. The first thing to look for a responsible person. And this responsible person should be caring, not because he wants to fulfill a needs inside of him, but because it's a part of his personality. Sometimes people choose that they are responsible, but they are having motives behind that. They want to show that they are responsible and they want to show that they can be doing anything, but that's the motive behind that is to fulfill a needs inside of them. To fulfill a needs inside of them. But the point is to find a person who is responsible and having the sense of responsibility, because this is a part of his personality. This is a very important thing. So the first thing to look for in marriage, and the first thing that we should address marriage, is responsibility. And the first thing to look for, if we are looking for a spouse, is a responsible person. Of course, she must look nice, she must be beautiful, okay? And of course, he should be handsome, okay? But most importantly, he should have and she should have a sense of responsibility. So this is the first thing that we should address marriage with, is his responsibility and a sense of responsibility. And the first thing to look for when we are talking about marriage, or when we are talking about proposing marriage, is finding a person who is having a sense of responsibility. The second thing that we should be expecting in marriage, so the first thing that we should be expecting in marriage, that I'm going into responsibility. Yes, by the way, before we leave the responsibility, I'll just go back, forgot to say something, that sometimes we feel that marriage is the end of the story. Because we watch a lot of movies, and all of these movies, most of them are romantic movies and love stories, okay? So all of these movies starts by two, a man and a woman, okay? They saw each other in Hawaii, in one of the hotels in Hawaii. He was opening the window, and at the same time she was opening the window. And then he looked at her, and she looked at him, and they were surprised when they saw each other. And then the story starts from here, and they start trying to communicate with each other, and then they started to be friends, and by the end of the movie, they decided to get married, or they decided to live their life after that together. After a long struggling and after an action movie, they started to continue with each other, okay? So sometimes we feel that marriage is the end of the story. So when a person, for example, started thinking about marriage, he said, it's okay, well, I want to arayah, I want to astaqir, I want to find myself, it's enough. I had enough from the world now, I want to relax and find something. He started thinking that marriage is the end of the story. Unfortunately, marriage is the beginning of the story. Marriage means that we are going to start a new story in our life, we're going to start a new phase in our life, which start with a very important thing called a responsibility. So I'm going to have a new responsibility beside the responsibilities that I'm having in my life. So that's a very important thing that we should know. And of course, when kids arrive, this is a new phase in marriage, and it's a new responsibility. That's a very, very important point regarding the responsibility. The second thing that we should expect in marriage is that I'm going to live with a person other than me. So yes, of course, we love each other. I like him so much. I like her so much. She's wonderful. She's amazing. But she's different than me. It's another person. He will not be having everything as me. He will not be having everything a copy of me. By the way, there's an important key word in here. which everybody is tricked by. It's called assumption. Assumption. Okay? We all are assuming something that's there. So we are assuming that this person, when we are going to live together, okay, everything will be going fine as long as I find this girl, as long as I find this man, as long as I find this lady, as long as I find this boy, as long as I find this spouse, we are going to live together a wonderful life. So this is an assumption, by the way. It's not a true fact. But believe it or not, it may start from the first day in marriage. One of the most important and one of the very interesting stories that I met in my, it's not a story, but it's a fact actually, that I met in my life. I met couples that they were married for around 18 years. And they always fighting with each other. And when I sat with the wife and I talked to her, I told her, so why did you get married to this guy if you are always fighting together and you're always... She told me, I liked him at the very beginning. He was so impressive. He was so handsome. I like a lot of, and she was laughing at that time. I liked him. He was wonderful. And when I asked him, he said the same, I like her. She was wonderful. I started digging inside and seeing what is the reason for that. Believe it or not, it started from the first day of marriage. He used to stay at home without putting anything, without wearing anything in his feet. يمشي حافيا, without wearing anything in his feet. And she was not used to anything like that. She always wears something in her feet while she's in home and out home. She never lived in home or out home without anything in her feet. So they started the first day of marriage. She saw him, why are you walking like that? He told her, oh, I'm at home. She told him, really? No, at home we wear something. You know? He told her, no, I'm at home. I always live like that. She told him, but we can't continue our lives like that. He told her, no, this is, don't think, this is, let's enjoy our life. There's nothing about, he told him, no, I can't. What's going on? And then they started forgetting about that, and she started to do her best to accept that. But one day there was a visitor coming to them. They were an important visitor coming. Okay, so this important person that's coming, an important family that's coming to visit them. And then 5 minutes, and they will be arriving. She told him, hey, are you going to meet the people like that? He told her, yes, it's normal. No, you can't meet them like in my whole life, I live at home, and everybody comes at home and see me like that. I'm not going to change. She told him, no, but these people you can't receive them by that. You can't. Yeah, no, I will. And then they started a very, very, very big at that time. It was a very, very big khina'a, okay, and it ended up by the bell is ringing, tin, tin, and then he went outside and opened the door without anything in his feet. Okay, and then the people come, and when they finished their visit, okay, he opened the door, and there was an elevator actually, and this elevator was a little bit far from the door of their house. He walked to the elevator without anything in his feet. Then bye-bye. Okay, and by this day, or by this night, it wasn't a night actually. And no morning came to this day. So the point is that we are going to marry something that is different, someone who will be different. We are tricked by the assumption that as long as she's wonderful, as long as he's wonderful, so we are going to continue our lives. As long as we are wonderful couples, we are so rare couples. As long as that, so we'll be able to continue our lives. The point is not that. The point that I'm going to get married to someone who is different than me. This is a very important point. He's different, has a lifestyle, and this is a very important thing. Will never change. Believe it or not, will never change. Sometimes I met some men that came to me and told me, after 18 years or after 20 years, I was able to let her change something in her, lifestyle. Told him as what? Told me, I don't like, I don't like her dressing red, so now, after 20 years, I'm able to let her not to dress red. And then I ask him, well, do you think that she's changed from inside? He stops and looks at me. Do you think that she's convinced by that? He stops and looks at me. He told me, I don't know, but I think so. I told him, no, you don't think so. She's doing that, not because she's convinced, but she's doing that علشان تريح دماغها. Right. So it's something his lifestyle will never change. So that's why before marriage we have to do a very important thing. If we are going in a marriage to before marriage, we have to discover these differences without being overwhelmed with emotions. Sometimes before marriage, so we are overwhelmed by emotions, we are overwhelmed by the person, we are overwhelmed by how handsome he is, how beautiful she is. We are overwhelmed by all of these things. And unfortunately, we have no space or we have no room for discovering what are the differences between us. What is the difference between his lifestyle and my lifestyle? What's the difference between her lifestyle and my lifestyle? So we are overwhelmed by a lot of things, especially emotions, and we have no chance to discover that. So when we get married, all of these emotions calms down, and what remains after that is the difference between both of us. So it's very important during the time before marriage to be able to discover this personality, what he's having, without involving the emotions in it. Or trying to neglect these differences for the sake of passion or for the sake of emotions. Sometimes people can figure out these differences, but for the sake of emotions and for the sake of passion, they say, no, it's okay, we can break down now, we can't do anything, we can't stop it. We love each other, everything is going great, we can't stop that. So we can't. It's okay, there's differences, but after marriage we can deal with these differences. Unfortunately, after marriage, these differences deals with them. Not they will be able, not they will be able to do anything to these differences, but these differences overwhelm them and starts to cause problems in their lives. So that's why, before marriage, we should discover these differences without being overwhelmed by emotions or trying to neglect these differences for the sake of passion. And to do that, we have to pray, take advice, and think. Pray, take advice, and think. Away from emotions, and most importantly, think if you can overcome or if you can really afford these differences. Sorry for the interruption. لا ما خلاص. Right. So pray, take advice, and think. Away from emotion, think if you can afford these differences. So again, we're speaking about before marriage. We are trying to spot these differences, to find these differences, and to know how to deal with these differences. And the second thing, well, this is away from emotions. And the second thing, which is more important, to pray. Take advice and think. Pray. This is a very important thing, of course. We should pray for that. We're praying, asking God to enlighten our hearts and our minds. So when we pray, asking God to enlighten our hearts and minds. So we can be able to see and we can be able to take this decision. And at the same time, we can take advice of Father of Confession, take advice of some counselors, take advice of someone who is expert in marriage these days. Not in the previous days, but these days, okay? And the third thing is to think. And what I mean here by to think is just to think by mind, not by heart, and not by emotions. To think by our minds, and not to think by our hearts, but think by our minds. So, pray, take advice, and think. Away from emotions again, and after you spot these differences, decide and think with your Father of Confession and with whoever you are taking his advice, am I going to afford these differences or not? Will I be able to afford these differences? Will I be able to go along with these differences, or it's difficult? Think about that, because it's very important. Very important. And not for the sake of emotion, we should neglect these differences at all. Because if we neglect these differences, our marriage will become a nightmare. Well, so before marriage, we should do that. So what about after marriage? Okay. What about after marriage? So this is before marriage, and I met someone before, he told me, the church is always speaking about before. What about after? What about after marriage, if I'm not prepared well, and then I found that there's a differences between me and my spouse. And these differences causes a lot of problems. I don't know how to deal with that. Well, these are, for example, these are very brief outlines. Okay. Well, the first thing, both pray and submit to church. Both pray and submit to church. Now, we started finding that there's a difference between me and between us, and I'm not able to live with him while he's living at home without wearing anything in his feet, okay? And we started seeing a lot of differences that we can't afford. We weren't able to discover or to spot that before marriage. So what's the first thing that we have to do? We have to pray. Now, okay, we're praying. Because we believe in our Christianity, and especially in our Coptic church, that we are married in the church in here. And the Holy Spirit descended on both the bride and bridegroom. And then he made them one. So we are married in the church, and the Holy Spirit descended on both of them. That's why if something happened to them, we have to find maintenance in the place that made, or the place that invented these things. So the first thing, we go back to God and tell him, it's okay, we need our maintenance, we're coming back, we're going to the service center, which is the church, which is God, okay? So the first thing would be praying. This is our service center, okay? We're going to be praying a lot, not praying for him, okay, to obey me, or for her to obey my words, or for him to live according to my lifestyle, or for her to live according to my lifestyle. No, we are just praying for God, and we are submitting ourselves to the church in humility and telling them, God, please do something. We don't know how to deal with that. The second thing, submitting to church, which means that both of them should submit to Abuna, or submit to someone Abuna should choose to deal with them in these differences, maybe a counselor or something. So both are submitting to Abuna, not only one, but both submits to Abuna. Actually, Abuna suffers when it's only one who is submitting and the other one is بايع دماغه فيش. Okay, both should submit to Abuna, and both should submit to the church, and listen to the church, and listen to what the church is saying. So after marriage, both should pray, submit to the church, and again pray that the Holy Spirit that made them one may work inside of each of them, so at least they might be able to meet at a point. They might be able to meet at a point. So this is after marriage. So the first thing that we should be expecting from marriage is the big address and the most important thing, which is a responsibility. Responsibility. I'm going to a responsibility, a new responsibility. The second thing I should be expecting in marriage, that I'm going to get married to a person other than me. And by the way, again, person other than me, which means that sometimes the wrong and right that I'm having is different than the wrong and right he's having. And this is actually a riddle. His wrong or right is different than my wrong and right. And this is a disaster, actually, not a riddle, a disaster. Of course, all of us, we're having something called wrong, which is the sin. So whoever is living in sin, this is something wrong. And we all disagree about that. But when it goes far beyond sin, and there's wrongs and rights, so here comes the problem. Okay, so a person which is different other than me. And then after that, the third thing that we should expect in our marriage, and before anything, expect it from ourselves to do, is called respect. This is a very important key word that should be present in every marriage, before marriage and after marriage. Of course, before marriage, of course, I will be respecting her. She's amazing. I'm respecting him. He's amazing. But after marriage is very difficult. It's a very difficult task. Okay, respect is a very difficult task in marriage, but it's a very important thing in marriage. Without it, marriage would break down. Respect. So again, I'm saying respect starts from myself. Respect doesn't mean that she should be having respect or he should be having respect towards me. No, but I'm speaking about myself. I should have respect in my marriage. I should have respect to my spouse. Respect. Unconditional respect. Well, actually, these two words, or this combination of words, is from my invention. There's nothing called unconditional respect. There is an unconditional love that we'll be talking about afterwards. But unconditional respect, which means that I will be respecting the other, and I will be respecting the differences if I found differences. I will be respecting everything, because I have to respect. Not because هي كانت قليلة الأدب هو كان قليل الأدب. No, that's not the reason. But I'm respecting because I should respect. I'm respecting because I should respect. Not because I will respect. Because of just one thing I'll be respecting. Because this is my role as the church taught me. So the church, by the day of my marriage, told me that I have to respect my spouse. Whether I'm the bride or the bridegroom, I have to respect. There should be respect. So I'm respecting because I'm respecting, not because she did or he did. So I'm respecting him when he's kind, when he's nice, when he's cute. And I'm respecting her when she's fine, when she do everything that I need, when she fulfills my needs. This is not the point. I'm respecting because I have to live the life of respect inside my marriage. And if there's something not happened wrong between both of us, so the first and important thing that to remember that I should respect and I have to apologize, whether I'm wrong or not, but I have to apologize. So the first thing, unconditional respect. The second thing, respect the differences. Respect the differences. Again, if she is seeing something that I am seeing wrong and she is seeing right, So what can I do? Something like that. If she's saying about that, that is right, but I'm seeing it wrong. What shall I do about that? Sometimes, for example, sometimes we experience this, and it's very famous when we find someone, for example, is coming from Upper Egypt, okay, and he's living in the United States, and the wife, for example, she grown up in the United States. So sometimes he feels that there's something that he's seeing that it's wrong. For example, maybe here, the way she dresses, the way she deals with others, the way she deals with men. As she's grown up in the United States and here she's having a mindset, a special mindset. He's grown in Upper Egypt, he's having a totally different mindset. And then they started living together in one place, and then he started thinking, oh, why are you doing that with this guy? Why are you dressing like that? Why are you doing like this? And so forth. Sometimes, for example, something like that for someone who's coming from Upper Egypt, with all my respect, of course. All of us are coming from Upper Egypt, of course. And all our families are coming from Upper Egypt. But the point is that sometimes it's a little difficult for him, but he have to respect. And he have to understand that. And he have to have the respect. Whichever the things he's seeing, it is wrong, or whichever things that he's seeing is something like that, we have to respect that. And he have to deal with that in a calm way, or in a respectful way, in other words. So respect the differences. Whichever the differences is, we should respect the differences. Respect comes first. Respect comes first. What's the meaning of respect comes first? Or what do I mean by respect comes first? Respect comes before anything else. Respect comes before anything else. The first thing that we should put in our minds is respect. I do remember my mother, actually. She passed away, but she told me before she got married, in the day of her marriage, okay, her father came to her inside the room, which was my grandfather, and told her, look, the most important thing you have to do, respect your husband. This is the first thing. Whatever happened between you, respect him. And the second thing, respect his family. So my mother always she tells me about this story. When sometimes they are having a hard time together, she comes to me and she told me, I have to respect him. My dad told me so. He came to me on the day of marriage. So respect comes, respect the first thing. And last thing, respect, respect, respect. The address of marriage should be, for our Christian marriage, should be respect. Especially for our Christian marriage. Especially for our Christian marriage. It's very, very important to understand that Christian marriage is built on respect and, of course, on love. But I'm starting by respect first. Okay? Respect comes first. Respect is the most important thing in our marriage. Whichever happened to me, whatever happened to me, whichever my spouse is doing, whichever the other is doing, most important thing to have respect. Okay. So again, the first thing that we are having in here, the first thing that's related, we can address marriage, we can expect in marriage responsibility. Second thing, a person other than myself. The third thing, that I should have something called respect. By the way, before we end this respect, sometimes in our ordinary life, we are used if something happened to us. We start to have a special attitude. For example, if in my work my boss came to me and then started to talk to me in a way that I didn't like, I can start by this time to unrespect him and to deal with him by the same way. And it's okay, I can leave the work and go, no problem at all. But unfortunately, in marriage, no. When I feel my spouse is doing something and talking to me in a way that I didn't like, that doesn't mean that I have to do the same with him, but that means that I have to go inside and understand what's happening inside of him, because we are one, both of us. So respect is the third thing that we should know. Okay, after that comes the love. And again, the love in here means, I don't mean that she should love me or he should love me, but I should have the ability to love. And not the emotional love, not the type of love that is only built on emotions, not the type of love that is only built on emotions. Of course, it should have emotions. A love without emotions is something so... Well, it should have emotions, but it's not only built on emotions. A love that is not only built on emotions, but a love that is having something different. It's having a different meaning. From a couple of days ago, I was visiting a guy, and his son, he's having an adult son, and he and his son were fighting with each other, and his son hit him in his head, and unfortunately the dad went to the hospital because of this hit to the head, and he was having a problem in his head. And then when I met this guy after meeting him, I told him, so are you going... Yeah, he is the father, yeah. So the father who was the one who was hit in his head, and he went to the hospital by this day. This guy, 23 years old. 23 years old. Okay? I'm not talking about anybody else, by the way. I'm just okay. So, well, when I went to visit this dad, I told him, what are you going to do? Are you going to do a case? Are you going to do something? He told me, this is my son. I will not be doing anything to him. But I'm going to find why he was angry, and I'm going to try to solve that. Actually, when this guy told me so, I started thinking that we are having, as Christians, an ability from inside of us to love. But maybe it needs a little adjustments in our minds to understand. Well, I don't know if something like that happened, how myself I'm going to be acting towards the person that did that to me. But anyhow, well, the point that this opened the door that we are having an ability to love. And this kind of love is not built on how good is the other and what is the other is doing with me. Okay? But it's built on some adjustments in the mind that how I'm seeing the other. This is a very important point. In here you are, it's an unconditional love. Unconditional love. Unconditional love, it's love which is not built on reasons, but a love it's built from inside to outside. And of course, I'm going to talk about that a little bit now. We are imitating Christ in this unconditional love. We're going to talk about it now. But the point is, unconditional love, which means that I'm loving not because he's good, because she's nice, because he's handsome, because no. I'm loving because I'm having something from inside called love, not because of anything. But this love is coming, of course, from Christ, and this will be dealing with it now. So, a type of love that is not only built on emotions, unconditional love. Here's a very important point that we should address, which is feeling unloved is a major problem in marriage. Feeling unloved. If the wife felt that she is unloved from her husband, this is a disaster. She will starting unrespecting him. And if the husband felt that he's not respected from his wife, he will stop loving her. Of course, it's a problem. We, of course, know the story of David. All of us know the story of David and his wife. Her name was the daughter of Saul, Michal. Okay. You know what happened? The story that happened at that time. So they were having at that time, they lost what? They were celebrating the arrival, the return of. That's right, they were celebrating the return of Ark of Covenant, and David was so pleased, and he was dancing and praising and everything. The Bible said that she looked from the window upstairs, and she saw him dancing, and the Bible say a very, 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 very strong word or statement. احتقرته, which means she looked at him that is very small. Yeah, yeah. She looked at him down. That's right. And then when he came, he told him, "Oh, what was you do? What were you doing? Is the king of Israel should do something like that?" Oh, that's what. So by this time, David told her. There's a very, very, very strong verse in here that David said that he didn't knew her after that. So there was no intimate relationship between both of them. So the point is here, when feeling unloved, it's a disaster for any for any of the couples. If the husband felt that he's unloved, it's a disaster. But if the husband felt also that he's unrespected, this is a very big disaster for him. If the wife felt that she's not loved, this is disaster. And by the way, let me say something for the husbands and for the men. Okay, the wife feels that she is unloved from your body language. So just from your body language, she can understand if she's loved or unloved. This is a very important point. The last point in this love as defined by Christ. So we can see in Romans 5, verse 8, but God demonstrates his own love towards us, in that while we were sinners, Christ died for us. This is a very, very, very deep verse. Let's try to read it one more time. God demonstrated his love, his own love towards us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I would love to say a very kind of short story. Well, let's imagine a story that's happening. Maybe I said it before, but I always like to say this story. It's associated with this verse. Imagine if Christ was on the cross. And everybody was going back and forth and blaspheming and saying, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa." Then Christ came down from the cross and looked at everybody, all the scribes and Pharisees and all the elders of the people, and looked to all the humanity and then looked at them and told them, "You do not deserve salvation." And then he ascended to the heaven. Okay, again, Christ was on the cross, and while he's on the cross, everybody's going back and forth, "Oh, whoa, whoa," blaspheming and so forth. Then Christ left the cross and get down from the cross and looked at everybody. And you humanity do not deserve salvation. And then he ascended to the heavens. So no salvation happened. So Christ, imagine with me, did Christ of course didn't do something like that. But imagine if he did something like that. Imagine with me if he did something like that. There was no salvation. Okay? But this verse is very important. But God demonstrates his own love towards us while we were still sinners. Yani, while we were still going back and forth, okay, and blaspheming, while we were still sinners, while we were still enemies, while we were still a part of God, while we were still hating God, okay? Christ died for us, and Christ came and died on the cross for us. This is the demonstration of love that God gave us. Of course, God gave us this love, not because we deserve it, but because we need it, and because he's a father, and to teach us how to love exactly, and to how to live this unconditional love. So, the fourth thing that we should be expecting in marriage, that we should have the ability to love. Should have the ability to love. So when I find my spouse did something wrong with me, he's having a special weakness or something and so forth or something like that, that doesn't mean that I should deal with him aggressively, but I should think and I should change my thinking towards him, and I start thinking, what's going on inside of him? How can I help? And how can I help him to get out of that? So this is the ability of love, the ability to be able to love. So the first thing is responsibility to address marriage, and we should be expecting in marriage. The second thing, that I'm going to marry this person that is different than mine. The third thing is respect. The fourth thing is the ability to love. The fifth thing, the ability to be flexible. The ability to be flexible. flexibility. This is a very important task in marriage, flexibility, to be flexible. What's the meaning of to be flexible? It's a very wide meaning, but the point is we can just sum it up in just one word, or we can give an example about flexibility. Flexibility means that if all the things that I'm not expecting went the way that I was planning, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. There's always other plans for that. If the things that I'm expecting didn't go the way that I was expecting, that doesn't mean that this is the end of the world, but it means that there is other plans and there's other way. So the first thing to have the ability to be flexible, that I should know that things will not always come as expected. Things will not always come as expected. So after marriage, I found that this guy is not as I expected. I found this beautiful girl is not I'm expecting. I found a lot of things that I wasn't expecting in this marriage. So what should I do? I was having a lot of plans. That I'm going to get married, and after marriage I was going to travel and I was going to do a lot of friends. There was a lot of things inside of my head. But actually after marriage I found none of them is going to happen. None of them is going to happen. So what shall I do? Is it the end of the world? This is the very important thing. So the flexibility means that I should expect that things will not always come as expected. The second thing to have the ability to be flexible is beware of complaining. Beware of complaining. Sometimes when things doesn't come the way that I'm expecting, sometimes we overreact. We start complaining and we overreact. This is a very important point. Beware of complaining and to overreact. The third thing after that, be creative, find a solution. Be creative and find a solution. Let me tell you a story that happened 300, maybe more than 300 years ago. In Europe, there was a cathedral, a new cathedral that was built, and they started thinking while they're building this cathedral that they do the ceiling, all the ceiling of the cathedral by glass. And they started thinking that they want to paint this glass. So they brought one of the most famous painters by that time, and then he started painting all the glass, and it took him around 2 years painting all of the glass. Okay. And then there was remaining 5 days on the opening of this cathedral. And while they were arranging things and putting things, and now putting things down that this painter was painting with, one of the workers hit the glass, and all the glass fell down. After 2 years of working and 5 days remaining to open the cathedral, all the glass went down. They weren't able to do anything. They started looking at each other. This painter wasn't by that time, he wasn't attending this incident. So they started thinking what to do. They said, let's go to him and see what we can do. Then they went to him and they shared with him this incident. Then the painter by this time, he stopped talking and he wasn't able to talk. He wasn't able to say anything. And then he told them, I want to go to the church. So they took him to the church and he started looking at all the glass which is on the floor. Start looking for 1 hour in all the glass which is on the floor. And then they told him, leave me alone. So they left him alone, but they were a little bit afraid. They thought that he's going to kill himself or do something. Leave me alone. So they left him alone, but they were looking from behind, seeing what he's going to do. Then suddenly he came out and then told them, I want to buy some stuff. He bought a lot of things. They didn't know exactly what he bought. And then he told them, leave me alone. Set again all the things that I was using in painting. And then he started doing, by all the stuff that he's doing, he started doing, collecting all the parts that felt, and then he started to stick them together by these things that he bought. And by this time, he finished all the ceiling in 3 days. And believe it or not, that was the first time, and that was the beginning of the, what do you call it, Lizaz al-Ma'asha, which is stinktones. Okay, right. That was this is what the beginning, this is what the birth of it. An incident happened, and then this painter started to think how to solve this problem, and by this day it started. So, be creative, try to find a solution. So, we know that God finds solution to it. God is creative. And whatever we do in our lives, God is able to work it out for good. So God is creative, and He's able to work everything for good. It's our role to imitate God and to try to think, to find a solution to work things for good. The fourth thing after that, the ability to be flexible. Find what's there, not what's not there. Find what's there, not what's not there. Let me give you an example for that, what I mean by that, what is meant by that. Imagine if there's 3 servants that are serving in church. 3 servants serving in church. One servant is serving Bible study. One servant is he's taking care of the sick people. And one servant is serving in the IT and the technology. 3 servants are serving in church. Imagine if these 3 servants started, each one of them, talking about the other. Let's try to think about this scenario. The one who teaches Bible studies started looking at the one who is serving the sick and the one who is serving in the IT, and starts saying, these people are not servants because they know nothing about the Bible. They should first be a Bible study servants, and then after that they can serve anything else. But these people don't know anything about the Bible. So they are not servants. So this is the Bible study guy. Now, the one who's serving the sick looks at the one of Bible study and looks at one of IT, and looks at each one of them and say, these people are not serving because the one of the Bible study is only saying about Bible and speaking about the Bible. He didn't touch Christ as I'm touching Christ. I'm touching the sick people, I'm serving the sick people, I'm touching Christ. This is not servant. What about these ITs? What's going on? Nothing at all. It's some computers and some programs. And what's the service in that? And then the guy that is serving the IT says, oh, how poor is those 2 servants? One is a Bible study servant and one is serving the sick. They don't know anything about the technology. They have to come to the technology. It's time of technology. They have to know technology to apply it in their service, but they are nothing. They are not serving. Imagine if these 3 servants started talking about each other like that. Imagine if those 3 servants are asked to serve together in one service. Will they be able to serve together? They will not be able to do anything together, of course. Each one of them is thinking about the other. So difficulty. Flexibility means that I have to find what's there, what's not there. To find what's in the other, not what's the other is lacking. Let's go back again to these 3 servants and let's try to think in another way. The one who is serving Bible study, he says, oh, I have to go to serve with the one who's serving the sick because I feel that this guy is touching Christ. He's serving Christ. He's serving the sick. So I have to, he's having a great service. I have to serve with him. And then the one with the Bible study says, oh, and I need also to know a lot about the technology. I have to be updated to use the technology in my Bible study. The one who's serving the sick says, I want to learn about the Bible, so I have to link and to connect with this servant or who is serving the Bible. I need to know more about the Bible to be able to give the people that I am serving something from the Bible or to talk to them from the Bible. And I need also a lot of technology to know how to serve the people that I'm serving. The one who's serving with the technology and the computers says, oh, I need a lot from the Bible study and I need to serve with the guy that is serving the sick, because I need to serve them to know more about the Bible and to know more about the sick so I can think how to help with them. If each one of them was thinking about the other by this way, this opens an opportunity that if they are together in one service, they will be able to serve well in this service. So that's what is meant by find what's there, not what's not there. Again, in marriage, it's very important to find what's in my spouse, not what my spouse is lacking. Even if she or he only knows to do how to do a cup of tea, a delicious cup of tea, this is something good. Finding what's he's having, or finding what she's having, not finding what she's lacking or finding what he's lacking. It's a very, very important task in marriage and in flexibility. To be able to find what he's having and how we are together by what he's having and by what I'm having, that we go along together and start doing great things. Not standing and thinking about what he's lacking and what she's lacking and standing out there and spending years trying to let them gain what they're lacking, and it ends up by never gaining anything. So flexibility means that I have to be flexible, have to be able to understand that things might not come as I'm expecting. I have to find a solution. I have to be aware of complaining and start finding a solution, and at the same time finding what's on the other, not what's the other is lacking. This is flexibility. The last thing that I'm going to talk about, the ability to communicate. This is a very long story, actually, the ability to communicate. This is a very important expectation that we have to have in marriage, which includes the ability to understand the language of your spouse and the ability to express feelings. The ability to understand the language of your spouse. As we all know, when women say something, men understand it in a total different way the woman wants to say it. And vice versa. When men say something, women understand it totally different way by what men want to say. The ability to understand the language of your partner or of your spouse, it's a very, very, very important task in marriage. The ability to communicate and to understand the language of your spouse. It's a very important task in marriage. And it's a very difficult task in marriage. It's a very, very difficult task in marriage. Following by the ability to express feelings. The ability to express feeling, whether these feelings is negative or positive. Whether I'm having a positive feelings, whether I'm having a negative feelings, whether I'm hurt, how to say I'm hurt. Well, this is a long story, I don't want to speak about it now, but how to say I'm hurt. And not to say, why are you doing that? How to say, I am hurt. Without saying, you are doing bad things, but I'm saying, I'm hurt of that. I am hurt from that. How to say I'm hurt, how to express the feeling, whether it's happy feeling, what's a negative feeling, whatever the feeling is, how to express these feelings. This is a very important task in marriage. And this needs a lot of preparation, by the way. Communication. It's a very, very important thing. This needs a lot of preparation. We can see in the gospel, we can see in the Bible, how Jesus was able to communicate with everybody. He was able to communicate with the Samaritan woman. He was able to communicate with the paralytic man of yesterday. He was able to deal with everyone. He was able to communicate with everyone. And by the way, we can't find that in the whole history. We can't find that in the Bible as a whole, in anywhere else. So for example, when Elijah started talking to the woman that he went to, he was a little bit, yeah, please do me that, and God will never yeah, God will never put you down, so just do me first there. And it was, but Christ was able to communicate with everybody and was able to let everybody understand him. That's great. So communication is a very important task in marriage. And communication, by the way, is built on a very important concept, which is going from one self to the other. So I need to, it's not self-centered. I'm not centered around myself, and I want everything as it is or as I'm needing it. But I'm going out of myself to the other. I want to understand what's going on. I want to understand the other. I want to understand the language of the other. And you can find a lot of books related to that. For example, His Grace Bishop Yusuf is having, I think, a book about communications, and there's a lot of Christian books about communications. It's wonderful books. Communication is a very important task in marriage, and it's a very, very important thing in marriage. The ability to communicate. So, briefly, let's say them one more time. So, what should we expect in marriage? The first thing that we are going to a very big responsibility, there's a very big responsibility. I'm going to get married to a person that is different than myself. Okay? I should have the ability to respect, and I should have the power to respect, and the ability to love. I should have the ability to be flexible and the ability to communicate with my spouse, and glory be to God forever. Amen. Any questions? Okay, thank you. What do you think? Are we done? Okay. So that's okay. Okay. In the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. We thank you, Lord Jesus Christ, for everything concerning everything and everything. We ask and entreat your goodness, O lover of mankind. Bless everyone in here. Bless everyone attending with us through the internet. And give us all to understand how to live our marital life in a sanctified and blessed way. Give us the ability to understand and to communicate and to love and to respect our spouse and everybody. Give us the ability to imitate you and to be able to love the unconditional love. Bless everyone in here and bless our lives. Grant us all success in everything. And with the intercession of our Lady, the Queen of us all, Saint Mary, Saint Antonius, Saint George, and all the choir of your saints, make us worthy to pray, thank for your Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. The love of the peace. The love of God and Savior Jesus Christ be with you all. Depart in peace. The peace of God be with you all.